and welcome to ABP Live. I have with me today the eminent personality, Sonam Wangchuk, and he is one, synonymous, the name that is with Ladakh, relentless work that he's been doing for years, for decades. We recently saw that he was on a hunger strike, talking about some very serious issues that we may not hear every day, but these are directly linked with the survival, with the livelihood of the people in Ladakh. And then, of course, the challenges apart from the climatic challenges and many other things that has happened after Article 390 abolition, Article 370 abolition and 35A. We also know this very much, that how the increasing Chinese tensions, the India-China border tensions, is also impacting daily lives in Ladakh. So we'll hear more from him and understand what are some of the deep issues that not just India, but the world also needs to know. Welcome to ABP Live, Mr. Wangchuk, and thank you for talking to us. So let me just first start by asking you, what are some of your main demands? Because I know when Article 370 and 35A were abolished, Ladakh really rejoiced because you became a separate entity and not just, one other district of Jammu and Kashmir, but you became a union territory and then you wanted the statehood. What happened and where do you think things got stuck?
So Ladakh has always wanted, and I would say deserved, a special status as an entity by itself. It used to be an independent kingdom way back. Then it became an insignificant district in Jammu and Kashmir, which was itself a remote state. So that was not deserving of a kingdom that it used to be. So therefore, it was always a demand, and that got fulfilled. People were very happy.
Yes.
Only problem was about democracy and safeguards. Yeah. Now I come more from environmental angle. I feel that leaving fragile mountains, whether in Ladakh or Sikkim or Arunachal or Himachal Pradesh, is a very dangerous thing. You said it's an issue of survival for Ladakhis. I think it's an issue of survival for entire subcontinent because much of our population depend on the glaciers of the Himalayas. 2 billion people of the world depend on the Hindu Kush Himalayan glaciers, which is like 1/4 of the population of the world and entire North India. So therefore, we must not treat these mountains like any other land in UP or Delhi or Lucknow. Even there, I would say you must treat all the land and the landscape and ecology very sensitively. But when it comes to the Himalayas, it's very fragile, very exponentially significant for the survival of the whole nation, at least the North India. So therefore, there should be some safeguards and not a free-for-all attitude to the Himalayas. Other states should look into what kind of safeguards, stringent safeguards that the government can bring in rather than leaving into industrialists and mining companies and so on. But for Ladakh, there is already something called 6th Schedule in the Constitution of India, which gives local people the right to make decisions about how they manage their land, forests, customs, traditions, and so on. Now, this is a beautiful provision in our Constitution, kept by our forefathers for these faraway lands with the indigenous tribes. That's all Ladakhis were expecting the safeguards to come from when it becomes a UT, way before it became the UT. And to our pleasant surprise, the government, the BJP government, assured us again and again that this is exactly what they're doing. They did it through the meetings of National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. They did it through various other ministries and people were assured in 2 elections. So they rest assured. But then they backtracked and they changed their stand, and that's when people got very sad and upset. Secondly, people here also deserve democracy, in how this fragile, very different from the rest of the country or actually the planet this place is, how it is managed should have something that local people can contribute. Elected leaders should make those decisions, but we are a UT without legislative assembly, which means an LG, lieutenant governor, can just make any decisions, and their words are the commands. And they unfortunately have very little idea about these mountains and life here. And the best of them will make mistakes, worst of them will sell off, entire valleys to companies because there is no protection. And that's why we are demanding democracy, just like Kashmir has been promised statehood, restoration, or sixth schedule, or rather, and sixth schedule, which was already promised here. So the same could happen in Ladakh as in Kashmir, because we also lost democracy in the process. And sixth schedule, because 97% roughly of Ladakhi population is indigenous tribal people. It is exactly for these people that the provision has been kept. And therefore, we hope sooner or later.
So if you are included in the sixth schedule, you'll be getting both legislative and judicial powers. But let's say, when the government comes back to power, or, even if there's a new government after June 4th, we really don't know. How do you think you will be pushing forward these demands? Because you just finished, a 21 days hunger strike, and then your movement is going on. It's not stopping. Would you go on for similar kind of exercise, or would you push harder now this time that a new government will come in place?
So a journalist asked me before we started the fasts here and the movement, what will you do if the government just says, no, we won't do any of these, no matter what we promise? And I said, then in a democracy, the only resort you have is the people. And enough number of people support an idea, then it is difficult for a government to not, because they'll lose their legitimacy if they don't listen to the people.
Right.
And that's exactly how we started this movement, to show to the government in place that not only people of Ladakh, but a large number of the nation support not only safeguarding and protecting Ladakh's ecology and culture, but also the people living here are, there to remind them of their promises. Because these are not just proactive steps. These are promises made in elections with written manifestos. And we'll be failing in our citizenship, if we are not even able to ask a government to keep their promises. That's what any government would like their citizens to be, vocal enough to demand their rights. So this is a very legitimate right, a promise. This is like a check being issued, and that check has bounced. We have to just remind them that your check has bounced. Please correct it and reissue. You have already promised it. It's illegal.
But what do you think would be the issue that, since 2019, and when, personalities like yourself have been pushing it so harder, why do you think the BJP did not go for it?
We don't know. In Ladakh, everybody is very confused and perplexed. Why did they backtrack? Either they promised without understanding, which is very unlikely. A government wouldn't put things in their manifesto. Leaders, who are supposed to be learned, educated, legally aware, they wouldn't do that. That could be a possibility. The second is that they put it earnestly, but in between they had pressures from industrial houses and mining lobbies and so on, because it would hurt their interests if all the valleys and mountains in Ladakh are safeguarded and people here have a decision over these. So they perhaps, I theorize, that they put a lot of pressure on the government. In the best way, I would say, they put a lot of pressure. Others say maybe they have had deals. Even that I don't know or wouldn't say. But they put a lot of pressure, I assume, on the government not to protect these mountains. And now, therefore, we think that it's our duty to create as much pressure, equal and opposite pressure, so that now the government gets a balanced feel to make a good decision. When there's pressure from one side and nothing from the other, they'll obviously bow in to that pressure. But if the people rise up and make at least equal and opposite pressure, then they'll make a fair decision. And the fair decision will be fulfilling their promises.
In this 5 years, we've also seen, Mr. Wangchuk, the fact that there's been an explosion in tourism. I mean, if anyone can go around Leh and see this massive amount of hotels coming up, in every corner there is a small homestay or a hotel, and even the mountains. We saw that while I was on the road trip from Srinagar, so many restaurants, and this thing is coming up. You being an eminent environmentalist, what are your concerns that will this land go to hoteliers, corporations, and of course there is this the China problem.
So what you are seeing, and you think it is extreme, is nothing compared to what it will become. What you are seeing is still something that is completely managed by locals. So the hotels you see are family run. Homestays and guest houses are family run. There's actually a family who is benefiting as income and employment. They actually serve food. They're looming around in the dining halls and so on. Now, without any protection, there'll be chains of international hotels coming with very high energy consumption, very high water consumption, wasteful ways that of big 5-star, 7-star hotels. That's not okay anywhere, I would say, but it is a crime when in a desert like Ladakh with such fragile ecology, you open floodgates to such markets.
But then they say that this it helps in developing the economy.
It is helping the economy now when it is family run, when it is employing people around by people here. It's helping the economy. When it is international chains, then the local people will only be washing dishes or standing at the gate. It will hardly be helping the economy. If you make a calculation, most of it will go out to some countries abroad. There'll be very little left for people in Ladakh. This is the fear. If it goes out of local ownership of hotels, suddenly they'll find themselves at the gates and the dishwashing places. That will not help.
But will this concern be addressed if you get the statehood and if you are included in the 6th schedule?
6th schedule, definitely, because then each region of Ladakh will be able to make decisions themselves, laws about various things in their own areas. Yeah.
Okay. And if I can ask you now on the China factor, I believe that is also becoming a sore point. I mean, the standoff has also gone on now for almost 4 years. We are going to have 4 years in this May. Is that also a concern? Because, recently I was talking to locals here and they said that the grazing grounds are all gone. They are all now part of the buffer zone. And the fact that they believe that, while there has been some kind of disengagement, the heavy deployment of troops is in itself a concern, and that's affecting the nomadic people as well.
Yes. The nomadic people of Ladakh are the biggest losers. And they are actually the most precious economic powerhouse in a way, because relatively speaking, Ladakh has hardly anything that it produces and exports except Pashmina or Kashmir, the finest fiber in the world, brings you, hard currencies to the nation. So they have a huge contribution, but they are losing their pastures left, right, and center. It's China from the north and it's Indian corporates from the west and south. So that's why I brought this issue to the fore. Not only China, but Indian corporates also. There are huge plants, energy plants are coming there, which is not the worst. It's solar energy. But still, they could have done it in better, inclusive ways by asking the nomadic herders where can we build so that you are not harmed. Instead, they go and earmark the prime summer pastures of these nomads. So they'll have to sell their goats and move to cities to become coolies. Yes, and already thousands of square kilometers, according to leaders in Delhi, are gone to incursion from China. And you're right. We don't see the Chinese here in the village, but we see buffer zones have come. Yeah. So whichever way, the people have lost their grazing lands. Yeah. So buffer zones have moved to much closer than where they used to graze just 20 years ago, 5 years ago. So they are losing their pasture lands, and that will harm not only the economy of Ladakh, but a rich tradition. For thousands of years, they have lived a lifestyle. All that will be lost. So this is a concern. And heavy militarization, yes, is a concern not just for the nomads or Ladakh, but it's a concern for the planet also. There's huge militarization, and each side is burning fossil fuels at crazy rates because it's minus 40 there, and soldiers are from hot places in China or India. So it's become an economic challenge, ecological challenge also, while being an economic challenge for the nation.
And if I can ask you, Mr. Wangchuk, now being the UT that you are, you directly deal with Delhi. You don't really go to J&K government anymore. So what is the conversation you are having? And I'm sure, they hear you, of course, and the fact that you also have a dialogue with them. What is the response you're getting from Delhi on your demands?
There have been meetings over the past 5 years, some 10 meetings with the Home Ministry. I'm not a part of that. That's done by what is called the apex body in Leh and Kargil Democratic Alliance, KDA in Kargil. The two together meet with the Home Ministry. Unfortunately, over 10 meetings have happened, but nothing but leaving it to the next meeting, dilly-dallying till March 4th, when they just clearly said, no, this is not possible. So it has not been proactive at all. I wouldn't have expected any sane government to do this to a sensitive border area where the people are so patriotic. Actually, people of Ladakh are first defense.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And
then the army is there. But people make it possible for the army to have a winning advantage.
China is watching all of this.
No, this asset that I just talked about, of having the local people so closely supportive, is not something China can claim. They have, people locally against them. Same with Pakistan. India has this huge advantage, and it's kind of pushing it away. Of course, people here are better than that. They understand if not this government, next government will solve. But we are not going to be affected by their callous, cold attitude towards us. We'll remain patriotic. But I would say the government hasn't cared whether the sensitive borders are weakened or strengthened because of their lack of diplomacy.
Right. So are we going to see more protests from your end? Because that's the only thing.
I don't think so. I don't hope so. Don't say that. I very much hope that if the same government comes, they'll realize that they have made promises, then that they should keep promises. A party that steps back on their own written promises will not be respected by anybody in the nation or internationally. Indigenous peoples' movements around the world will see it as a deceit. So I hope they go through some realization. And that's why we did our Anshan. And that's why we called upon all our brothers and sisters throughout the country. And they came out in huge support. So maybe the next government realizes what they have done to Ladakh and resolves it. And if it's a different government, well, already the Congress party has put in their national manifesto the issue of granting Ladakh 6th schedule. And I'm sure, like Jammu and Kashmir, they'll also work for democracy in Ladakh. So either way, I'm very hopeful. A more realized government of BJP or the Congress, who have again promised.
Sure. And lastly, to understand, you're an innovator, and I saw, I went around this, your Himalayan Institute of Alternate Studies. What is it that you are doing there right now? What are the programs that you are running for the benefit of our viewers? Because it's a unique kind of, educational reform that you are running here.
So we have been into educational reform for 30 years, first into school education. And when we could achieve some degree of understanding and success in school education, we thought, why not higher education? It's equally messy. It is equally meaningless. Youth in their late teens and 20s waste 5 years of their precious lives just reading books and listening to lectures. That's not going to change the world. What's going to change the world is action. So this is, you could say, makers and doers university that we are experimenting.
That's why you're expanding.
Yes. So we here hope that youth in their 20s should be able to change the world. They shouldn't be made to sit in rooms and listen to lectures. 30% classroom and 70% field work. Do things, learn things, change the world, and start your own.
And what kind of field work do they really do?
We try to address fields that touch Ladakh and the mountains. It's a mountain university, so we take up issues that matters to the mountains. For example, cold winters. So you will see eco-responsive architecture, where buildings made of harmless materials like earth, mud or soil, free, economically great and ecologically wonderful. You make buildings out of it, add a little science, and you are warm, much warmer than in Delhi. In Ladakhi winters, without burning anything, just with the sun. We get plus 20 here. In Delhi, you have plus 12. So I feel cold when I come to Delhi from my Ladakhi house. So such things that matter to people's lives. Or it could be about ecology, greening the valleys, water solutions, artificial glaciers, tourism. Tourism is going to be big. It can be a good impact, but if mismanaged, it can be a very bad impact. Like you said, hotels are popping up everywhere. So we are working to bring tourism to remotest places. So they get economic opportunities and do not leave their villages and migrate to the cities, thereby killing the village and the city. So all such things that actually matter to lives of people in ways that actually train them in doing things in real life.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Wangchuk. That was Mr. Sonam Wangchuk telling us, what is the demand that Ladakh has and why is it important for Ladakh, for statehood and also to be included in the 6th schedule. For ABP Live, this is Nayanima Basu signing off from Leh, Ladakh. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.